Well, here we are. It is Friday, May 12th, 2023, and this, of course, is the weekly video. As I say each week, we do these every Friday, and try to get them up around 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, show what's been going on for the week, what's been selling on eBay, what's been going on at other auction sites, the major auction houses, and so forth. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Leave a comment. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoy them. And we're going to get into it. Here we go. The first thing I wanted to mention was, as many of you know, and many of you have seen it, we did a nice interview a few days ago with the Marchants over in London with Samuel and Stuart, and talked about the early days of the business and how their company got started and what they went through. Some pretty fascinating stories there. It's really interesting stuff. And they've basically seen it all. They've been around now. They're heading into they're in their fourth generation, and they'll probably have a fifth. So if you get a moment, check out the video and visit their website. I linked their website off the bottom of the video down in the text section. You can go over there and take a peek, get in touch with them. If you're going to England, stop in and visit the shop. It's always fun to visit nice antique shops. All right, now a couple of things. I got an email this week from Goots over in France. They've got a sale coming up, so we've, of course, added the catalog. We got a copy of the catalog and added it into the catalog section of the site. So if you go over to it, there it is. It's the first one. It's a nice looking sale. It takes place on June 1st, so you have plenty of time to get information and get ramped up on it. They got a very rare pair of Chinlung market period dragon cups on the cover. Quite exceptional, and there's some other very good lots in there. I would urge you to go through it. It's a nice looking sale. Whoops. Got the audio up there. Let's turn that down a little. And check it out. They do a good job with their catalog. It's a nicely illustrated, good information. And the girl there, I think her name is Mary Ann, said if your viewers need any other information, just reach out to them. They'll be happy to provide it. All right, now, what else is going on? We're going to get over this. As many of you know, there's been a problem with eBay clicks opening in a few, when you click on a link and they're not opening sometimes. They're saying that the item has been removed and so forth. I'm going to get into that in a few minutes, what's going on over there. It's a total mess, as is common with eBay. One of the things I wanted to mention was from the global pages, the Nadal auction got finished a few days ago that had all that armorial ware in it. It was interesting to see because the armorial stuff did pretty well. This better than we've seen in the past. There was this plate, for example, Yongchen period, Godfrey above the motto Corte Fixum. Sold for $3,500, well over the high estimate. And this was sort of how the sale went. They had some very fine armorial wares. There's a lot of good armorial floating around. And this massive charger, this was a 15-inch Yongchen period armorial charger, beautifully done, nice looking decoration. If we can get it to open, we'll be in good shape. This is another problem we've seen lately. There we go. Some of the live auctioneers things don't open up very well either. I think the tech crowd has to get on it. But this was a very, very elegant charger and very big. You don't see many armorial chargers floating around the market. And this one had a small repair of some kind to the rim, and it still sold for $7,500 plus the premium. So by the time it was all in and done, you're up around $10,000 for the plate. And then there was this one. And this is sort of an interesting story. I'm pretty sure the story behind this one is that when the order for this plate was sent over to China to be done, they sent over the heraldic crest on a little framed piece of on a piece of paper, and it had a frame around it. And the story, my understanding of this is that when the Chinese decorators went to draw it on the plate, they included the frame. They did literally. They put on the plate exactly what was shown to them, and it was within this frame with this little border on it. So the Chinese decorators added it just the same. It's a pretty funny story. Anyway, this was a very, very nice plate. It looked to be in pretty good shape overall, but it did have a pretty good repair right here on the left. You can see it's an old repair because it's yellowed. And that's not a big deal to get cleaned up, but and there's a pretty good chance that it wasn't. They didn't do a lot of in-painting there. There's a very good chance that repair is just that paint there is just to cover up maybe a crack or something. So it may not have been as bad as it looks. And it was estimated at $500 to $1,000. It brought $2,750 plus premium, so it ended up being close to around $4,000 for the dish. Nice looking porcelain though. And then this was also in Nadal's, and I had a couple of people ask about this. Had a few inquiries. These were ivory apparently, and they had something in the notice at the bottom that they could not ship these basically anywhere. They more or less said if you buy these, you got to make your own transportation arrangements, and trying to get them shipped across state lines and out of the country is just about impossible. And it's a shame because these are wonderful bits of ivory. Beautifully, beautifully done. 19th century, probably first half of the 19th century from what I can see of the workmanship. Just superb. And there was interest in them though, and they ended up selling for $4,250. And it's a shame that ivory can't be sold anymore too much openly because of the elephant situation. And I'm just going to go on a little rant here for a minute. I was involved with the testimony. I testified twice before the Massachusetts House and testified twice before the Massachusetts Senate on the issue of elephant ivory. And they had me come in because they wanted to know how much elephant ivory that's modern is turning up in the art market, carvings that Chinese carvings basically. And my testimony at that hearing was that we don't see it. It doesn't turn up. And that in the end we learned that the bulk of the elephants that are slaughtered today through poaching, the ivory up until a few years ago was just being stored in warehouses. They weren't carving it, they were treating it like gold bullion and just storing it. And now the price of ivory, raw ivory, has plummeted from $2,200, $2,500 a kilo, and it's down to about $200 a kilo now because you can't sell it, you can't trade in it. But it's a shame that the antique ivory, which has no impact at all on the poaching market, and the poaching market has no impact at all on the ivory antique market, my feeling is the law should be modified to examples that can be identified as being antique. Because it's not only harmed the Asian and Chinese ivory market, but it had quite an impact on a lot of others, including watercolors on ivory that were done in France and Europe throughout the 17th, 18th, 19th century, musical instruments made from ivory, like flutes, things like that, and all kinds of other things. And the law just got out of hand, and I'm hoping that at some point some politician will develop a spine strong enough to say, you know what, antique ivory is fine. It has nothing to do with the poaching market. And I've heard the same comment made. I'm going to finish up in a second, excuse me. The rhino market. Rhino horns are poached, and rhinos should not be poached, obviously. But the idea that they're being used to carve rhinoceros horn libation cups and things like that we see in the arts is mostly just nonsense. The vast majority, probably 99.9% of all the rhino horns poached never go to China. They all go into southern Asia for medicinal use, to be ground up into powders for healing medications, aphrodisiacs, all that sort of thing. But it has got nothing to do with the art market, and we don't see them. I'm not saying that a no poached rhino horn is. I'm not saying a poached rhino horn has never been carved, because I can't say that because I don't know with absolute certainty. But I can tell you we don't see it, we don't hear about it, and I've never come across anything that looked like it was an antique rhino horn made from, or an antique looking rhino horn made from a new piece of rhino horn. It just doesn't happen, and I'm just hoping that eventually calmer heads will prevail, and the politically correct crowd will get out of the way and realize that antique dealers. They asked actually in the hearing. They said, "Can you tell the difference between old ivory and new ivory?" And I said, "Sure." And I said, maybe the average person can't, but a dealer who's handled a lot of it can. I've handled an awful lot of ivory over the years, and I can pretty quickly tell you how old it is, when it was carved, and all that. So I'm hoping that at some point people get sensible about it, because it's a sad thing when objects as beautiful as these cannot be sold legally. It's a horrible thing, and that's my rant on it. I'm an animal lover, all that, but it just makes me furious that it's gotten that insane. But then again, we live in an insane world. All right, now the other thing that we added to the global pages this week, the Nadal sale, of course, was on there. These are all things that are on the global member pages. This sale popped up a few days ago. It's on June 2nd, 3rd, and 4th in Virginia. And this is the Oak Ridge auction, Asian Arts, 3 parts. They've got some pretty nice looking things. They've got some very suspicious things too, so be careful. All right, they've got some old stuff, but they've also got new stuff sort of hiding amongst it all. So as always, be really careful. But on the 4th day, what they have is a very nice group of 144 lots of Chinese silks. If you're a silk buyer, you want to check this auction out. There's some very nice examples. I've noticed some of them have condition problems, as always with silk, because they're prone to splitting and rotting and all that stuff. But there's also some very, very nice examples. There's a couple of robes in particular that look quite good. There's some very fine looking rank badges and so forth. So do check out this sale. All right, do check it out if you're a silk buyer. Now, the next thing up was the Placous auction. This finished up a few days ago, and this was over in the UK. It actually finished up the day before yesterday. And one of the lots that was in there, and this is why I always say just leave a bid. One of the lots was in there was this. This was a very rare 18th century Chinlung coral ground colored teapot. I think I talked about it in a video a few weeks ago, or I talked about it on the global member video. This ribbed, gilt decorated with underglazed blue, very rare teapot. Very rare. And many of you, if you buy teapots or buy 18th century export wares, ask yourself, when was the last time you saw one of these in this color? And this doesn't look like clobbering. This looks like it's all original. The gilding is on top of the red. It's just a wonderful example. Absolutely stupendous. Somebody bought this for 360 pounds. And those of you who buy this stuff know that was probably $2,000 or $3,000 under what it was probably worth. This was a great buy. This was the buy of the week. I couldn't believe it. The estimate, their estimates. Placous has very, very low estimates. It's just basically their way of saying there's no reserves on anything. And this ended up bringing within its estimate of 300 to 500 pounds. It shouldn't have. This was a very rare bird. And if you are an export buyer, and this was in the Chinese taste too. And this was technically, I suppose they would call it export, but I'm not totally convinced because it's very much Chinese taste. Very, very strong colors, nice ruyi heads at the bottom, beautifully done, and I think it was an absolute steal for someone. Absolute steal. All right, and the other stuff that was in the sale did pretty well too, and some of it didn't. Some of it was pretty friendly pricing. There was this very nice Wutsai Shinji covered jar with its lid. How tall was this? About 14 inches or something, 35 centimeters, so about 13 and a half inches in height. Estimated modestly at 300 to 400 pounds, which obviously is way off. Ended up selling for 3,800 pounds, or around $5,000 all in and done. And that's sort of on the low edge of what these have sold for in the past. And this one looked like the enamels were in quite good condition. I didn't see a lot of wear to it. Had a couple of those little funny hairlines that these jars tend to accumulate around the necks, but the rest of it looked very good. I didn't see a lot of wear or rubbing to the enamels. This was a nice pot, and it could have easily brought 7,000 or 8,000. Somebody picked this up, I think, very fairly, very reasonably. And also, they had one of these, and many of you that do buy export wares will recognize this this parrot, one of these perched parrot vases. They did them in sets. I think there's a set of these at the Peabody Essex Museum. They've turned up at Christie's and Sotheby's in the past. It's a very desirable pattern. It really is. And somebody got themselves one. If you've ever wanted one, because sometimes they sell them in lots of, I think, 4 or 5 as a group. And they tend to bring pretty serious money, maybe $8,000, $10,000, $12,000 for a few of them. Here's one that went off for 800 pounds, and it was a great opportunity for someone that's working with a more modest budget to get a pretty rare bird, a pretty rare Chunlung example, sort of made probably around 1760 or 70, somewhere in there. Nice looking porcelain. And then they had, of course, the oddball things like this. They had listed this as a hexagonal Amari bowl Kangxi period. And those of you that buy Japanese porcelain know right away that this is a piece of Japanese Amari. And if you flip the thing over, here's the bottom of it. And you know right away that it's Japanese just by seeing that single blue line out close to the foot rim. We've talked about many times. And it's got that sort of chain border around the inside of the foot in iron red. And then these looped lappets coming around here, all very Japanese, all 19th century work. Nice looking bowl, though. Nothing wrong with it. It was about 5.5, 6 inches in diameter. Had a good looking barbed rim on it. And I can see, you can understand why they might have thought it was Chinese at a glance, but it isn't. It was clearly Japanese Amari. And somebody picked it up for just 190 pounds, which is perfectly fine. That was a nice little bowl, a nice example with a nice mark on the bottom. And then they did have some things that were quite excellent, that did very well. Ultimately, it was this pair of enameled ewers, Chunlung period, 18th century. They don't display right in this picture. It's confusing. There they are. They were around 10 or 12 inches tall, roughly, beautifully decorated, nice condition. Obviously, very finely decorated all the way around. I didn't see any real damage to them any place. They were estimated at 4,000 to 6,000 pounds, and they ended up selling for 18,000 pounds plus premium. So you're up around $23,000, $24,000. But these are very rare, and you don't often see them in pairs. And you don't often see this Middle Eastern form done this way. But they did do them. Clearly, and this was sort of an unusual example. How tall were these? Yeah, they were 12 inches tall. Okay, they were a little taller. I thought they were 10 or 11. They're 12 inches tall, just a bit taller. So there they are. So the Placous sale did fine. I heard from a number of you that bought things at the sale in the Japanese category and in the Chinese category, and all of you felt like one fellow, or two fellows wrote me actually after the sale was over. One guy had bought a Japanese thing he was thrilled with, and somebody had bought a Chinese object that they were thrilled with, and they thought the prices were very favorable. And that can happen. The idea is you could hit all the auctions. Chase them all down. All right, now what's happening on over at eBay? Some of you may notice that there's been an issue lately with eBay. I'll see if it happens now when I do. Probably won't now that I'm talking about it, but let's see here. Okay, that'll probably display. No, it won't. Many of you are seeing this message. This listing with the number has been removed, or this item is not available. Okay, this has been a problem with eBay now going on for 3 or 4 months. It was only occasionally back in January or so, and it's gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. Sometimes if you hit the refresh button, it'll display the page. And now if you go to click the link, it goes back to it. And that's the problem. And I've been in touch. I've talked to somebody at eBay about it. I was over on one of the message boards talking to somebody and put a video up displaying what the problem is. They've been totally aware of this for months. And they're now just saying they think they've figured out what the problem is. And to run a site like this with you having a horrible time looking at the objects, you would think that would be the most important thing in the world to them, that they would have all hands on deck trying to fix it. Well, I can tell you they didn't. And they put it off, and now they claim they've got it fixed, so we'll see. So you're going to have, if you're using the newsletter page this week, we're going to do it as much as we can, but we had a very hard time looking at objects for the last several days when we were compiling this week's list because we couldn't see the objects, and we don't put things in the newsletter page that we haven't looked at pretty carefully. Every single thing on this page we look at, every single thing, and you have to be able to enlarge them, and you have to pair up the dating and descriptions to make sure that they make sense and so forth. And there were some good things in last week's newsletter. We're going to go through some of the prices. Some of the prices were very strong, and I was happy to see that. But this week's newsletter page might have a few less things in it just because we literally couldn't open links, and we were getting very frustrated, to put it mildly. Anyway, but if you're encountering that problem, I'm sorry. But we have told them. All right, let's see here. Let's see, is this hasn't finished up yet. I'm going to put this off to the end. I want to talk about that a little bit. All right, now over here, this closed yesterday, and this was put up by Pud out in he's in Illinois, right? Ohio. He had this very nice jadeite, natural jadeite jade bracelet. And if those of you like jade jewelry, this isn't probably terribly old. It's probably vintage or something, but it's got some very nicely colored jade beads. And one of the things that he put in here, which was great, was that he put in, because jade can be dyed this color, as many of you know. A lot of the green jade bracelets you see around are not that color. Apple green jade, this color green, is very popular, and they will dye it. There are ways to dye jade to make it look this color, even if it started out not that color. It can really change the way it looks. And the owner of this necklace had it examined and tested. And you can send these out to gemological dealers, and they will test it to ensure that it's natural color, that this is natural green, and it hasn't been synthetically colored. And they went to Mason K over in I think they're in Colorado, and they sample tested a bunch of the beads, and they all came up natural. So this was a good buy. And somebody bought this necklace, I think, pretty well. They paid $3,383. Beautiful looking necklace, absolutely beautiful. And it came with a certificate, so you don't have to pay $400 or $500 to get that done. All right, and then over to this, one of these blood and milk dishes. The seller refers to them. That's an old dealer term, calling them blood and milk. It's a Kangxi period dish with iron red decoration. The picture's a little dark. He's got another picture, and it's a little too light. You sort of go from one to the other. But all of you that collect Kangxi porcelain recognize this dish. And this was a nice one. And it appeared to be in quite good condition. And it did quite well. It ended up selling for $543. It was about 9 inches diameter. This wasn't an enormous plate. But it was a nice example and in good condition. And that's the magic. That's what drives the price. All right. And then over to this Vietnamese market dish. I pointed out last week of the immortal floating in the cloud with the celestial signs above it, so forth. Here's the back of it. This was a nice looking plate. I liked it a lot. And apparently a lot of people did. And it ended up doing pretty well. And this was fairly small, 5.5 inches in diameter, sort of like a saucer. And ended up selling for $565. But it had a nice color. It was 19th century, and found a new buyer. Or found a buyer to take it home. Let's see, who was this seller? This was a seller down in Arlington, Texas, with not a lot of feedback. A new seller, 14 feedbacks. Hope he gets more of those. And then over to this. This was on here. Now, many of you recognize this pattern right away. It was a popular Kangxi period pattern, and often, how big was this one? 28 centimeters, about 9 inches or so in diameter. It wasn't a great big one, but it's a famous pattern. And this one had been restored, but unrestored, these plates sell for sort of a lot of money. They can bring $800 to $1,000, this sort of thing. And this one had a repair somewhere on it. I can't really see it anywhere, but they're saying it is repaired. If it's repaired, it's done pretty professionally, I think. And somebody got a chance to buy what might otherwise be a little bit on the pricey side for a lot of collectors. Is a nice example of a well-known plate that's in many museum collections. This pattern turns up in lots of museum collections. They sell them at Sotheby's and Christie's. And somebody got this one for $152 with a repair. And I think that's perfectly reasonable. You got it for about 15 or 20 cents on the dollar to a perfect one. That's not a bad buy at all. That's a good buy. And then over to this, Mr. Neil over in the UK. He's the seller that he's always got these wonderful mother of pearl gaming chips. And he had this one. It was an armorial example. And he has the information on the family from the Earl of, I'm going to say this right, Breadalbane, Earl of Breadalbane, circa 1780. If you've never spent any time looking, these are carved out of mother and pearl. and they look almost like they're carved almost to the detail of like coins or currency. They're very finely done. This was a nice one. I like this. I put it in the newsletter because I just like these things. Very beautifully done. And in the back it says "Follow me," and there's the crown with the family monogram on it. Nice looking thing. And someone paid $61.36 for it, and that's a good thing. So when you're out looking around in antique shops, if you're out poking around, every once in a while you'll come across a box of these mother of pearl game counters. Most of the ones, the plain ones, aren't worth much, but if you can find them with armorial crests and this kind of detail on them, they're obviously worth buying, because it wasn't that many years ago. I remember running into these in antique shops and buying them, and there might be 30 or 40 of them in a box. You could buy the whole box for $100, and you dole them out and you do pretty well. And even back then you could, but you break them up, and today you get somewhere typically between maybe $25 and $30 up to maybe $75 or $80 each for them. And some bring more if they're extremely rare. But this was a nice one. So check out Mother of Pearl chips. And Mr. Neal has a website, incidentally. I've mentioned this before, and he's done a couple of very handy pamphlets on the history of Mother of Pearl gaming chips and how to identify them. And they're not big, complicated books, but they have a lot of information in a couple of little books. I think he charges $10 or $20 for them. Get a hold of them and get them if this area interests you. It's an interesting part of the export market, and you generally found these, and if you came across some of these, they're usually in these old Chinese export lacquer boxes, and there'll be gaming boxes, and you'll find a bunch of counters in there, and this is an example of what they sell for. All right, so there's some arbitrage to be had there, and then over to this, probably Kangxi period jar. This was a nice jar. I think the seller had a couple of them for sale. Let's see here. We'll hop over and take a look at the top if the thing will load. This is the other problem that right now eBay is very slow to load all this stuff. There's the inside of it. There's the top of it again. I wish you had a better side shot of it. But there's the foot room. The foot looks pretty good. And if it's not Kangxi, it's certainly 18th century, but I think it's probably a Kangxi pot. Ended up selling for $2,033, and I think his other one did about the same. But that was a nice jar, nicely decorated. All right, and then over here to this, the rank badge, or the roundel, not really a rank badge. People sell these as rank badges. They're really not. But it's a dragon roundel. These have become so collectible. It wasn't that long ago that these rondels, you'd find them in antique shops framed just like this, and they'd be $175, $200, something like this, because they're attractive, they're beautifully made, nice details in them, lots of gold thread on this one, and it's an overall good condition. There was a little fading to the red. This color here, this area here, was probably more like coral or coral red originally, and it faded because it got near sun. You never put silks in any place where they're going to get any direct sun on them, even for just 2 minutes a day. Over time, it will fade them. It'll suck the color out of them. But this one, despite that, did very well. It brought $5,400, and that is a big leap from not that long ago. And we saw this. Many of you may remember, and we talked about these rondels. I think the last time was maybe a year ago, and we commented. We said, "Boy, these things are really coming along." And they were, those rondels, I think, were in the $3,000 to $4,000 range. Well, now we're up to over $5,000, and so let's see where that goes. Silk market is strong. And then we talked about this last week, was this very nice bronze incense burner with the horrifying red stand under it. I still can't understand why anybody would paint it that color. Maybe they had the paint and they just wanted to do something with it. But this is a nice old incense burner. It looked very, very nice to us. The color looked good. The surface didn't look disturbed. It's got the classic sort of Ming mark on the bottom that they always have and all that. The inside of it looked like that's the kind of wear you want to see on an old incense burner, where it looks like somebody actually used the thing and it hasn't been burned with chemicals to make it look old. This one did fine in the end. It brought $3,011, and also some nice looking legitimate wear on the bottom of the feet. That looks good. All right, and then over here to this, the cloisonne bottle vase. The seller got a hold of me when he was right before he put this up. one of my thoughts. And I told him it was a pretty good vase, and it brought more than I thought it would bring. I think I told it would bring $1,800 to $2,500 or something. I thought it was a nice old example, and apparently everybody else did too. And in the end, it did quite well. Ended up selling for $4,438. But it's a small vase, and these small pieces, like we saw over the last few months, we've seen a number of sales. This one was only 6¼ inches tall. Visually, it looks like it's about 12 or 14 inches tall, but it was a very small one. These more miniature, nicely detailed Chinese objects seem to have a growing interest in the collector market in particular. As we talked about before, the Bronx sale that had that collection from the auctioneer who was in business in the early 20th century. And I think last week this same seller had that very attractive lobed 6-inch, again, a miniature vase that ended up, it was an 18th, early 19th century vase, ended up selling for about $4,000 or $5,000, as I recall. And he's got another piece, this one up right after. So it shows some strength in the miniature market. Very nice. And then lastly is this very nice. I thought this was a great buy. I talked about this plate last week because I thought it was so attractive. Very simple, very elegant. Has very much sort of a French feeling to the board or the way it's done. And then these sprigs of flowers floating around. I thought this was really a lovely thing. And somebody got it for $195. That was a great buy. How big was this? It wasn't terribly big, as I recall. Wasn't it 10 inches? Size and length, 31 centimeters, so 12.5 inches long. So it wasn't a great big one, but it was a very attractive example with a nice soft touch of blue to the ground and these very delicately painted flowers on it. Somebody got it for a great price, $195. How do you beat that? Nice thing. And a few things that are coming up. I'm going to put this in the newsletter this week, and I want everybody to pay attention because I normally wouldn't put this in, but I like Japanese painting. This is a Japanese painting, and the seller has it listed as Chinese. All right, and this is a Japanese painting, Edo to Meiji period, somewhere in there. But it's just a terrific looking bit of art. And it's only up to about $4 or $5 because what's happened is Chinese buyers are looking at it and say, well, it's not Chinese, it's Japanese, and I don't buy Japanese, so forget it. And the Japanese buyers are probably not being able to find it. But it's a nice looking ink drawing. I love these old ink drawing, especially with horses, because I like horses on paintings. As all of you know, like the horse right behind me, the Ming painting with the horses on it. And I like this. Any rate, it's up to $5.95. It closes on Sunday. It will be in the newsletter page. If you like Japanese watercolors, all this thing needs a frame. It's got its nice old original matting around it. It's ready to go. Just slap a frame on it. You've got a great piece of art. And if it goes for $100, that's fine. The seller is a pretty good seller. He's been on eBay for a while. Roundhouse Antiques out in Seattle, or Tacoma, rather, in Washington State. It's a nice thing. It's a nice thing, but it's misidentified as Chinese. It is Japanese. So everybody that goes to the newsletter page, if you see it, remember I said that. All right, and then over to this. This was up front. It should have been in the back here. It's a very interesting fan. It obviously it has ivory blades, but the decoration with the floating butterflies, I think, is just terrific. Really, really like this. Let me see if we can get a better look at the butterflies. When I first saw these, I thought these looked like, to me, they were done in enamels, like enamel appliques applied to the fabric. And I'm still not convinced or not. If they're painted, this is like some of the best Chinese painting I've ever seen because they look very three-dimensional. They look like enameled insects that have been applied to it. So get a hold of the guy if you're interested. If you're a fan buyer, get a hold of him and find out, are these all painted on here or is this enamels that have been applied, like I said, as appliques? If they're painted, they're great too. But this is for the fan collector, this is a really unusual fan. It's got some condition issues around the side, some odds and ends and so forth. But this type of fan is very unusual. And I'd love to know if anybody's ever seen one quite like this. Maybe the fabric wasn't what it was originally, and somebody added this. I don't know, but it's awfully good looking. It's Chinese painting. It looks like it was probably made during the mid 19th century, but very unusual, very, very unusual. It's up to $108. It closes Tuesday, and don't be surprised if this thing does pretty well at the end. It says for repair, kind of rough, for repair or study. So he's being brutally honest about it, I guess, but it certainly displays well, and that's what counts. So give that thing a shot. All right, and then another silk roundel. This has two bids. It's up to $899. It's gonna close tomorrow, and I expect it'll probably go up a bit. It'll probably go up maybe $1,000 to $1,500. We'll see. Nice quality work, not late Qing style of decoration, and here you can see the reds, how strong they are, and that's the color of red that used to be on the roundel that we looked at a while ago that I said had faded. This was more toward the accurate color, but this one has not been in much sunlight, so the colors are quite vibrant and strong on it, and it's a nice one. It's a very pretty one. Alrighty, and then over here to this, you have this 17th century export dish for the Japanese market. Nice one. It's up. This closes on Sunday. It's up to 150 US, 120 in pounds. It's being sold by Loft Seeker. He's a dealer over in the UK. Nice plate. Nice looking plate. It looks like it needs a cleaning. It's it's got a couple of little glaze things going on there, but very desirable type Chinese plate for the Japanese market. And then over to this. I threw this in here because you see these plates fairly often. This is from Auctions Both Ways. He's out in Arizona. And you see this pattern, but this is a really strongly decorated one. So there's some of these are better than others. And this one looks like it was probably done around 1840 or so. Strong colors, profusely decorated, and in good condition from what I can see. I don't see anything wrong with it. I looked at it before. I'm going to double check it now. That's just kiln grit. You see some kiln grit on the back and so forth. But very nice, vibrant colors on this. Nice butterflies, beautifully done. This is very good quality work, beautiful quality. It's only up to $28. It closes in a week, though. It's got 7 days to go. How big is this? 9 3/4 inches. So it should bring 200 or 300, but don't be shocked if it brings 350 to 400, because the quality of the decoration on this is really exceptionally good. And the rim has nice flowers going around it with a gold background, and that's a nice bit of feature right there. So check that out if you're a 19th century export buyer. It's a nice thing. And this is one of my favorite things that's on eBay right now. We all have things that we see that really strike us. This, of course, is a instantly recognizable, well-known type of export mug. And it's 18th century. It has this chicken skin, what they call chicken skin ground on the side. Nice underglazed blue decoration. But I love this on the front of it. It says friendship, and this is something that was made for the American market, with that federal period star in the middle. This mug was probably made in the 1790s. It could have been made a little after 1800, 1810, but I think 18th century. But it says friendship on it, and I think this is just terrific. And it's a pretty rare type. And if you're an export buyer, there's the back of it. It is well made, and it looks like it's in great condition. And if you're an export buyer and you haven't bought anything unusual for your collection lately, do look into this mug. It closes on let's see, when does this close? It closes on Sunday. It's got 7 bids. It's up to $390. And if you want this, buy it, because you're not going to see it again for years and years. And if I was collecting export wares, I'd probably put $1,000 or $1,500 on this pretty quickly, because you're not gonna be able to find another one, I don't think. Maybe some of you out there have one of these. I don't know. If you do, leave a comment about it. But this is just such a charming piece of export ware for the American market. I think it's very much for the American market, probably the Boston and New York market, and done right after the height of the federal period. But a great looking mug with a beautiful strap handle. So do check that out. I think that is great. The seller is in Barrington, Illinois. He's only got 44 feedbacks, but he's got a very nice mug on his hands. And do check it out if you're an export buyer. And he certainly didn't overstate the description. Chinese export porcelain. That's it. So maybe he doesn't know much about it, but that's what it is. I just told you what it is. Handle and lip internally restored. I want to find out what that means. Maybe on the inside they did something, but I don't care. It's a rare little example, and it's certainly worth owning. All right, that's all there really is for the week. I hope you're all well. I hope you're all going to have a good weekend. We're going to be doing some gardening around here, I suspect. Get the beds back in shape outside, and so forth. And we heard we've seen some comments about the Marchant interview. You all liked it, so we'll see if we can't get a hold of a few more people and do some more of those conversations. I think they're fun. We had a lot of fun doing it. It was very interesting to me. And the video was actually a bit longer. We felt it was a little too long, so we trimmed it back a little. But in the future, we'll try to do some more of those. And if you know somebody who's well known in the trade or something, and you think they'd like to sit down and do a chat with us, let me know. We'll reach out to them. All right. Thanks so much. See you all next week. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.